U.S. Navy intercepts Iranian explosive shipment in the Gulf of Oman headed to Yemen. European Union announced additional food assistance to 6 countries, including Yemen. Years of conflict have killed and maimed thousands of Yemeni children across the country. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Injil Zazi. Yemeni military sources revealed that military arrangements taking place in the liberated areas to secure economic and international navigation. The arrangements come in response to the recent Houthi escalation on the oil ports in Shabwa and Hadramaut. The Houthis continue to launch attacks on Yemeni ports and pose a threat in the Red Sea. The U.S. Central Command announced on Tuesday that the U.S. Navy intercepted a huge Iranian shipment of explosive materials that was destined for Yemen last week. More on this story is within this report.
The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard intercepted an enormous Iranian shipment of explosive materials headed to Yemen last week, according to a statement from U.S. Central Command. The stateless fishing boat was carrying more than 180 tons of urea fertilizers and ammonium perchlorate when the Coast Guard ship USCGC and Navy guided missile destroyer USS came across the smuggling ship in the international waters of the Gulf of Oman on the 8th of November. For the next 5 days, explosive technicians from the U.S. Naval Force Command searched the boat and identified the substances as urea fertilizers and ammonium perchlorate, which can both be used in explosives. After U.S. military explosives experts examined the boat and offloaded the explosive material and Yemeni crew members, the U.S. military deemed the boat a hazard to commercial ship navigation and sank it in the Gulf of Oman. The U.S. Navy transferred the 4 Yemeni crew to the Yemeni Coast Guard in the Gulf of Aden so that they can be handed over to Yemeni civil authorities. This is the first time U.S. forces assigned to the Navy's 5th Fleet in Bahrain to intercept ammonium perchlorate, but they seized another large shipment of urea fertilizer this year after seizing a fishing boat in the Gulf of Oman with 40 tons of urea fertilizers coming from the coast of Somalia. It said the U.S. is committed to security and stability of the region and is committed to deter all illegal and destabilizing flow of lethal material in the region, over land, in the air, and at sea. The U.S. Navy added that the shipment has a massive amount of explosive material, enough to fuel more than a dozen medium-range ballistic missiles, making sure that the unlawful transfer of lethal aid from Iran doesn't go unnoticed. It said the shipment is irresponsible, dangerous, and leads to violence and instability across the Middle East.
The European Union announced that it will provide food assistance to the most vulnerable groups in 15 countries, including Yemen. This announcement came during a press conference on the G20 summit. This report has more details.
Ahead of the G20 summit in Bali, the Commission is stepping up support to help those most affected by the devastating effects of rising food insecurity globally. Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Nigeria, South Sudan, Somalia, and Yemen remain at risk of famine. The European Union and its member states are the leading donors of humanitarian aid in the world. The European Union provides food assistance in anticipation of, during, and in the aftermath of a humanitarian crisis. A new humanitarian aid package of €210 million will be provided in 15 countries to meet their growing needs. This brings the European Union's overall support for global food security to up to €8 billion between 2020 and 2024. In 2022, food insecurity reached extraordinary levels, both in scale and severity, with at least 205 million people currently acute food insecure and requiring urgent assistance. The humanitarian assistance funded by the European Union is delivered in partnership with the United Nations agencies, international organizations, and NGOs. European Union humanitarian aid covers interventions areas such as food and nutrition, shelter, healthcare, water and sanitation, and education in emergencies. Through its humanitarian food assistance, the European Union aims to ensure access to safe and nutritious food for the most hungry and vulnerable people in crisis. Food insecurity has been following an alarming trend in the last 5 years, mainly owing to conflicts, economic shocks, mainly associated with the effect of COVID-19 and climate change. The Russian invasion of Ukraine dramatically aggravated the situation through its impact on food, energy and fertilizer prices, as well as supply chain disruptions. According to WFP security data in Yemen, the October 2022-January 2023 WFP FAO Hunger Hotspots Early Warnings Report was released on 21st of September, indicating that the food security outlook in Yemen is unlikely to be as grim as previously projected, with some of the assumptions underlying the March 2022 Integrated Food Security Phase Classification IPC projection now disproven. The IPC analysis is currently being updated, with a revised analysis to be released in October. WFP's malnutrition prevention program remains suspended due to supply disruptions and funding shortfalls. In September, WFP provided cash assistance to 2,200 mothers for nutrition support under its Nutrition Assistance Program.
Inta's government forces and the popular resistance shot sources of Houthi fire after their positions were attacked. The government forces also repelled Houthi attacks on the central security camp after targeting residential areas northeast of the city. In Ib, the Houthi militia continues its raids and siege on a village for the 4th day in a row. Local sources indicated that the campaign came against the background of a dispute between Houthi leaders and the local villagers. More than 10,000 children have been killed or maimed since the beginning of the conflict. Shayma is a little girl who lost one of her legs due to Houthi shelling. Now she is trying her best to cope with physical and mental trauma that the war brought on her. More on Shayma's story is within this report.
Shayma is a 6-year-old girl who was playing around when a landmine exploded. She lost her leg as a result of the Houthis' bombing to the residential city.
I extended my leg while I was playing with my friends. Then suddenly I saw a red thing in the sky. As a child, I never knew what it was. It was a rocket. The other day, when I woke up from bed feeling itching in my leg, my mother interrupted me saying, "You cannot scratch your leg because it's not there. We have buried it."
Shayma's father remembers all the details of this Houthi crime against children. He tried to save Shayma from the bombing, but sadly he failed. The Houthi missile amputated her right leg, and the disaster was indescribable.
When I heard the landmine explode, I saw many victims on the floor, and then I heard my daughter screaming my name. I immediately took her to the hospital, and then she was pushed to the ICU.
Shayma lost her leg, but this did not stop her from living her life normally. She is in grade 6 and tops the list of her peers, believing that she could achieve her dreams and that what happened to her is not an obstacle.
شيماء طالبة متميزة شغوفة بالتعليم لها طابع خاص رغم ما تعاني.
Shayma is an excellent girl. She is a hard worker and she aspires to become better day after day. I hope the best for her.
ولكن هذه الإعاقة ليست إعاقة جسد.
I want to become a lawyer and live my life normally. The disability I have won't stop me from achieving my dreams.
Shayma is one of the many victims of the Houthis' crimes that include killing, kidnapping, and planting landmines. The international community must act as soon as possible to help save what is left.
The Organization for Combating Human Trafficking said that the Code of Professional issued by the Houthi group embodies the policy of discrimination. In a statement published on social media, the organization stated that the code entails practices that affect the rights of citizens in the militias-controlled areas, as it includes policies that embody the worst forms of slavery and human trafficking. Coming next in the news. African migrants continue to experience endless misery in Yemen.
نشن ندي ماء من الغيل والغيلة بعيد، كنا ندي بالدواب نعبي ماء ورجعنا. كنا ننزل الساعة 5 رجعنا الساعة 9.
ما يجي لنا ظهر لأنه زحمة ما حد يخلي الجهل يغرق وإحنا تعبنا زيادة.
وكنت أحس صدري يوجعني وعز قلبك ركبي يوجعيني.
كنا ما نستخدم حتى نغسل أولادنا إلا يعني بأيام معدودة.
كنت أغيب على المدرسة لأن كنت أروح الديمة.
حتى وإن كان يجي الأمطار تروح هدر لأنه ما في معي خزانة.
الوقت نشتري ب30,000 هي معها استهلاك ما يغلقش معها الشهر.
بس راح تطلب الله ولا أي حاجة، عاملة كل شغلك الماء.
Welcome back. Nearly 54,000 migrants have departed on the eastern route since the beginning of 2022. Migrants take difficult journeys facilitated by smugglers who subject them to exploitation, abuse, and violence. This report has more details.
After a long journey that was full of dangers even beyond the waves of the sea and many provinces, many of the African immigrants crossed the land on foot in Yemen. Murad Jamal's journey stumbles in Ma'rib due to the war on borders and the murder of many of his companions there in an attempt to reach the Gulf countries. He faces the obstacles of life by his humble job for 2 years until now. It gave him hope after not being able to live in his homeland as war and hunger stretched their hands over there.
We left the country due to the war in Ethiopia, heading to Somalia, then we sailed by a ship. On the way, hunger threats, big waves, and death can defeat you. Many died during the journey. We reached Arak Governorate. Anonymous people caught us, tortured, and released us in a return of a ransom. I work to send money to my parents, as well as my siblings, and then I will travel.
The African immigrants' suffering has transcended borders and homelands. They face pain and death to survive and pursue a safe place to live away from all what scares them. Their tired bodies are lying on the sidewalks and the roads. Hunger and thirst have consumed them. They find nothing but these walls and fragile huts under which they can shade even in unpredictable weather conditions. In addition to the sense of solitary, in a country that also looks for a savior, due to the war that has been going on in the country for more than 8 years.
المهاجرين غير الشرعيين من الأفارقة.
The illegal African immigrant who chose the journey of death to sail from Ethiopia in order to arrive to the Yemeni lands and face a lot of difficulties to reach the Gulf countries and from there to head to Europe. All of that is full of risks and various types of violations.
In Ma'rib, the International Organization for Immigration cooperated with the local authorities and began to send them to their countries in 2 stages every week. And the number of voluntary immigrants reached 1,500 out of 1,800 illegal African immigrants, while 300 preferred to stay in Ma'rib.
وكان لازم الجانب الإنساني أيضا استيعابهم وإعادتهم إعادة طوعية معززين مجللين.
We are considering the humanitarian factor, and we return them safely to their homelands if they wish to. In fact, they cause us a huge burden in addition to the burden that the governorate provides for the services of the displaced, the forcibly displaced, as well as the society of Ma'rib. Last week, we met with the United Nations and the authority in the governorate to arrange with an Ethiopian team and the local authority in Ma'rib how and where 1,500 migrants will be received and kept. Moreover, helping them get passports through the security agencies for the international immigration and provide them with buses and fund them by the United Nations when they get back home.
Ma'rib faced tremendous pressure as large numbers of African immigrants arrived months ago and still their flights stumble, besides the Yemeni displaced because of Al-Houthi, which made the city unable to provide the simplest living means for them.
The World Bank has launched a new financing facility to help developing countries adapt to the climate change. The bank said that the fund aims to protect the poor from disasters by setting financing measures before disasters strike. The statement indicated that the financing aims to adapt to climate and mobilize private capital to improve resilience. Agricultural engineers have warned of the spread of deadly agricultural pesticides in the Houthi-controlled areas within Al-Dala. This report has more details.
Agriculture engineers warned of the spread of deadly agricultural pesticides in the markets of the city of Tamt in Al-Dala Governorate. Agriculture engineers confirmed that the markets of the city of Tamt, which is under the control of the Houthi militia, were flooded with dangerous agricultural pesticides that suddenly appeared in the past few days. They explained that these pesticides are often used by farmers of the cod plant, and their appearance coincided with the onset of the winter. They pointed out that the pesticides spread in the markets bore multiple names, the most famous of which is the so-called Rada powder. Cod occupies 2/3 of the agriculture area in Rada districts, and these areas are threatened with depletion of water. The agriculture sector in Yemen remains vital to the livelihoods and food security of the most vulnerable populations in Yemen. 73% of the rural population relies on agriculture for their livelihoods, and 87% of the rural women engage in agriculture production and livestock keeping activities. The sector meets between 15 to 90% of the country's food needs and represents approximately 13% of the gross domestic product.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The U.S. Navy intercepts Iranian explosive shipment in the Gulf of Oman headed to Yemen. European Union announces additional food assistance to 6 countries, including Yemen. Years of conflict have killed and maimed thousands of Yemeni children across the country. This is the end of the news. It was Injil Zazi. Thank you for watching.